and thanks for joining us today for our 27th episode of the Restaurant Dealmaker Show, where we discuss pertinent topics regarding the food and beverage industry with industry professionals. I am delighted to have as my guest today, as co-host, Heidi KRAHLING, a chef extraordinaire who has been cooking for over 45 years and has a colorful history. Heidi started her restaurant career after attending Cal Poly by purchasing a small restaurant in 1978 at Bass Lake for $15,000, which is a resort town and only operated during the summer. In 2023, she opened her second restaurant, which she opened with a partner. 3 years later, she came to San Francisco to attend Tante Marie Cooking School. She then worked with Joyce Goldstein at Square One, which was a very popular restaurant in San Francisco many years ago. Heidi then worked at Butler's Restaurant from 1985 to 1988. Then she worked for 8 years at Smith Ranch, which is a high-end senior residential facility in Marin County, where she ran the food service operation for the retirement facility. The residents there ate daily, and Heidi made bread, ice cream, and every other item from scratch, and this is where she cultivated her initial customer base for her future restaurant. Heidi has been passionate about Mediterranean food since growing up in Southern California in a large Italian family. She then opened up Insalatas in San Anselmo in 1996, that's 28 years ago, and has been operating this well-known restaurant since then. Insalatas is proud to have been a Michelin-rated Bib Gourmand for over the past 15 years. Insalatas and Heidi personally have also won too many awards over the years to mention. For a period of time, she was a partner in Marinitas, a well-known Mexican restaurant a few doors down the street from Insalatas. In addition to having a successful career as a chef and restaurateur, Heidi has dedicated her life to service and serving the community. She has been involved with Lifehouse as their culinary director for over 35 years. She was a founding board member of ExtraFood, and she is also involved in Souper Kitchen, which Heidi will discuss shortly. Heidi is the author of 2 cookbooks, Insalatas, Mediterranean Table, and Insalatas and Marinitas, a story of 2 restaurants. Needless to say, a very impressive lady, and for sure a role model and mentor for many people who had the opportunity to work with her for over the years. Just as a technical note, if you have any questions during the show, please type them in the question box, and we'll try to get back to you during the show. And if not, we'll get back to you shortly after the show. So without further ado, I welcome Heidi. And the first question I would like to ask her is that her parents had a very large influence on her. And please discuss how has your Italian heritage and table and food experiences shaped your career?
Well, thank you. That was very thorough, Steve. Thank you. I'm listening. I go, yeah, I guess that happened and that happened. And oh, it's great. That's been a long time in the food world. But yes, thank you very much.
Sure, my pleasure.
Great is a great intro. My family, I came from, there's 6 kids in our family, and we, food was everything, everything. We grew, we had like 36 different fruit trees, veggies in our backyard. We canned, we pickled, we made wine, we preserved, we made everything. We made our own olives. And so, we joke, and now when I say, it's like, well, it's true. We're having breakfast and talking about lunch and eating lunch and talking about dinner. So it was really, really quite the thread of our family life, besides the fact we grew a lot. So, really the interesting thing, and we had a little discussion about this, is that, my family, the table, the dining table, the dinner table, or any meal table was where we all had to gather. There was none of this, I'm going to soccer practice. We just all ate at the table. And so life and our concerns and our joys, and hey, even Italian lessons from my dad, that all happened at the table. So I really kind of learned early on, sort of the importance to my family, but the joy that came from the table and the enthusiasm that came from the table. And my family really cooked crazy good food. I mean, all of my family. And so celebrations were a very big deal. And I got to see that early on. I go, wow, this is cool. This is a lot of cool food, you know? And so, you know, so food and family and the love of that also went out to my family were very involved in service, big time. And so they were always cooking and preparing food for organizations, everything from the Knights of Columbus and the Italian Catholic Federation, all the schools, they were always involved in that, doing large functions and cooking for them. So it also extended from our table to bigger tables. So I guess I could say early on, I just saw that how important food was and how much people loved food and loved great food. I mean, I don't want to brag, but my family cooked pretty wonderful food all the time. And my dad, he retired early, so he just cooked night and day. And here I am in high school, it's like, oh my God, you know, you're eating smoked pork, but with juniper berry cream sauce on a Tuesday, and then some Vietnamese celebration dinner the next day. And I just have to go to cheerleader practice. Do I have to, you know, like, you're sit down and eat this? And so, you know, it was just like a maze of, you know, pancettas hanging, you know, it's just a maze of, and I didn't know it back then, how magical it was. Cause, you know, California cuisine hadn't even started yet.
Right.
You know, it really hadn't. You know, my first two restaurants they were simple food. You know, I call it the quiche and crepe days.
Right.
You know, it was in the 70s. You know, that I think the late 70s is when Chez Panisse opened, but you know, I had not really experienced, except with my family, the magic and the brilliance of really good food, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Did any of your other siblings get involved in the culinary world and
No.
transcend with the great upbringing that you had in the food arena?
No, they're smarter than that. No.
Ah, okay.
No, but my sister did. I got to give her cred. She started Table to Table back in New Jersey, and that was, you know, she started an amazing organization that was more service, where it was like taking food from one place and serving another. And
Ah,
they distribute millions of pounds of foods, and she started that from scratch, very much like Extra Food that I'm involved in. So,
sure,
but that's the only food related business. But you know, my brother makes wine. I mean, we all still do all that fun stuff
sure.
that not necessarily for you know, commercial reasons.
Got it. Got it. So in our discussions, you've indicated to me that your three primary mentors in the culinary world include your father, Italo, Mary Risley, the founder of Tanta Marie's Cooking School, and Joyce Goldstein, the former chef and owner of Square One Restaurant in San Francisco. Could you please tell me how each of these three people impacted your career?
Yeah. Well, I think I talked about my dad. You know, my dad retired early, so he was cooking a lot all the time. And he came up to Bass Lake when I owned Bass Lake. And, you know, he had fun in the kitchen, and we had to close it down one weekend because he was so backed up with his special, we couldn't get it out fast enough. So that was very fun. And he enjoyed that. But so my dad was very into cooking and very into sharing. He came up with a cookbook for the family that was very intricate recipes that he had gathered, tested, retested. Always at the dinner table, we had to grade everything that he cooked and talk about what did we taste, what would we do different. So, you know, he did it so that he could collect these recipes and make a cookbook for us. And I'm like, really? You want, okay. I taste, you know, as a kid, you know, and I didn't, but then I just thought, how great to hone my skills before I even knew that they were going to be needed. So, and so my dad, my mom, and my mom too. My mom really, I would have to say, they're both were very into service, but it was also, you know, service and hospitality. They were very generous with their produce in our yard. They were very, always having people over, always sort of sharing the generosity and the bounty of what they had, no matter what it was. And I think that was really something that I've carried along. Now then I went to cooking school, and Mary really opened doors for me. Mary Risley was the owner and operator and my culinary teacher at Tante Marie's Cooking School, and that was 1983. And so she actually got me the interview at Square One with Joyce Goldstein. And that was tough. That was a tough, I had to go and cook at Joyce's house. What was I, 27? And I can still to this day remember what I made. I made a fresh porcini pasta with fresh peas and prosciutto.
Oh,
And then I made a cheesecake. I used to shake cheesecake out of my sleeve. I mean, that was one dessert I didn't need a recipe for. I made it at the 2 restaurants I had before I went to cooking school, and that I could do. And she goes, "Why did you choose cheesecake?" You know, because I think at that point in the mid 80s, cheesecake might have had its bell curve, you know, and it wasn't as, I go, because I know how to make it well. She goes, "Well, that's a good answer." I had some sauce, but you know, it was a very big deal working at Square One.
sure.
And
That was a great
I,
restaurant.
it was something. It was
Yeah.
she had a lot of people from Chez Panisse.
Yeah.
And I was kind of I felt very nervous and very overwhelmed. That menu changed every day. So we would walk in, Steve, and it was like 7 o'clock, and we get big vessels of coffee, and we would peel garlic and peel onions and wait for the menu to be developed, because every day it changed. We had no idea what we were walking into. And then it was beat the clock until service. And it was crazy.
Yeah.
But it was fun and intense, and you changed the menu every day. You saw dish after dish that you'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And that really was an integral part between cooking school and, Square One to launching me being a head chef.
Sure. Yeah. That was a very well respected restaurant. How long was she in business for? You remember?
Well, an interesting story I do remember, because she opened in 84,
Mhm.
and I believe she closed either in 95 or maybe early 96, because I ended up going to a restaurant auction and buying her pastry table. Buying her, and in fact, that table is still it's still in Insalatas, that pastry table, with the wooden backsplash. And I bought sheet pans and whatnot. So it
Huh.
was bittersweet to be able to buy something that had the most impressive pastry people working on that pastry table.
Yeah.
The angels that are now, that they've passed, there's a couple of them have passed, but it was, Diane Dexter was a pastry person there, and she helped Carol Fields, create the Italian baker.
Oh,
And
nice.
there's a couple of really great pastry chefs. But anyway, we got a lot of things from her, and
Sure.
Joyce still has a prolific, still to this day, culinary influence. She does doing cookbooks and
Oh, nice.
so.
Yeah. She's very well respected, no question. Well, shifting gears a little, although we've talked about it initially, you talked about initially on how the service bug got implanted in your genes and your whole perspective in life. You've really taken it to an extreme in terms of your commitment to service to the community. And specifically, I know you've been involved in 3 primary service organizations: Lifehouse, ExtraFood, and Souper Kitchen. And I'm just sort of curious, it maybe let the group know a little bit about, what's been the extent of your involvement, your motivation to be involved with these specific groups, and what's been the results of your participation in leadership in these groups.
Well, again, I realize, probably there's a couple of arches here for me, Steve. And one is that I love to cook, and have always, it's been passionate about cooking and production and putting out beautiful food. And in my day, like I said, I was born and raised that way. We eat beautiful food all the time. And, to be able to be in a restaurant setting to produce beautiful food all the time, it was magic. And so, again, what I realized is, and this is the service and hospitality part, is that how important food is to everyone. And to everyone. So what I realized is that, at the restaurant, there's a family who had a close family member pass away. We would send food to them. Somebody comes in to take out and says, I just heard this last week. You helped my son and his wife. They were in labor, and all they wanted was a Fattoush salad, and you just sent one over to the hospital, made sure they had a Fattoush salad. And it's those kind of stories that you realize that it is about the connection of a restaurant that people love with food that they enjoy, and the power of that table at the restaurant, or if they take it home, having delicious food at home, and how beautiful that is, and that you are creating that for people. You're creating experiences. Many people come to the restaurant for anniversaries and birthdays, and they say, we celebrate our anniversary every year, or it's my kid's favorite place, they always get pigs in butter. I hear that daily. And
Yes.
it's so, I can't tell you how wonderful that is to hear that. But then there's this level in our community when that 25% of people in Marin County are food insecure. And it really came to grips for me during the pandemic, when people that were shut-ins or couldn't get out because they had health issues, how food became a very big deal because they couldn't get out, or we weren't serving, or restaurants weren't serving, or remember how things got weirdly scarce. This food got scarce, and because of production, what do they call it? A supply chain.
Right.
And so all this was going on. And what I realized was, first of all, we were closed for a couple of weeks during COVID. And I thought, what are we going to do? I was just like, oh my God, this is nuts. And the hardest thing for me, Steve, is that a lot of my workers were not getting unemployment. So I thought, wow, this is really a problem. They, for whatever reasons I don't want to go into, they just did not want to collect unemployment. So here they have no income coming in. So what I was able to do is I was able to create a GoFundMe, and we raised over $100,000. And what I committed to, my husband and I committed to, is that we'll pay the rent, we'll pay, whatever they'll keeping the lights on. But whoever gives and gives generously, we will make sure we do two things. We will feed our community, and we will, support those in my restaurant that had no means of any income. And it was brilliant. We made 10,000 meals during a 3-month period, and everybody was supported in the restaurant. But what happened, Steve, I was so grateful, so much gratitude of how much people gave and how much I heard about how important Insalata. Now you're going to make me cry, Steve. Now you're going to get me to have the waterworks, but it was really a point in my career where I thought, if we're doing the right thing, and people said, you go, you do it, you just keep doing this, we'll support you. And they supported us in ways that were just monumental. They came to take out, because we couldn't have the restaurant open. And they bought everything in sight. People bought everything, and they just said, we don't want you to close, we support you. So, to continually see this sort of dynamic where people support us because they see that we support the community.
Right.
That's what we do at ExtraFood. ExtraFood is a nonprofit that I was a founding member of, that really moves food that's excess to those who need it in our community. And it works brilliantly.
Yeah. For the audience understanding, could you explain a little bit more specifically how that works?
So ExtraFood is a nonprofit that's been in over 10 years. We've 10 and a half years. And it's a very simple model, Steve. What we do is we pick up food from suppliers that have excess. They also pick up food that is planned giving, like a restaurant's going to make, Marinitas makes enchiladas every week, and, for 20 people, and they pick up some planned food, but most of it is excess from supermarkets, from hospitals, from catering sites that have extra food.
Right.
And then they have sites and agencies who will take that food. Some of the biggest givers to Extra Food are the farmers markets.
Right.
So on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, Extra Food has volunteers who wait till the end of the market, and all the farmers give what they don't want to take back, what they don't want to return with, for whatever reason. People didn't buy it. That week the sun was out and everything grew and they had to harvest it and they brought it. And I think a lot of times, excuse me, they know they know they brought too much and they're going to give it to Extra Food, right, because they know they won't sell that much. So that is the most amazing amount of food that distributes to all over the county. Amazing amount of food. In the summer, it could be 1 to 2 tons of food per farmer's market. So what happened during COVID, Steve, is that I started making these meals for Extra Food, and I went to the market and I saw all this produce that was Extra Food was gathering. So I took some for salads and whatnot. But what I noticed there is that there was a lot of food that were going to agencies, and I thought, wow, do these recipients really know what to do with kale and fennel and kohlrabi, and just random things that will go to these agencies' pantries? And I think, I don't know if, an elderly senior would know what to do with it, want to do anything with it. I just kind of realized, I said, people want cooked food. That's what they want. They're working 2 jobs, or they're infirmed, or they're frail, or they don't have the cooking expertise. And I really thought, way back then, I just thought, I'm going to do something with this food, and I'm going to make something. And that's where the soup kitchen came in. And so this afternoon, I go to the soup kitchen and we'll make 150 pints, which is 300 servings of soup. And Extra Food will pick up this soup tomorrow and take it to the agencies.
That's right.
What will also happen this afternoon is the Extra Food volunteers will call me while I'm at the soup kitchen and say, okay, Heidi, here's what we got. And I'll tell you what I got. I got virtually nothing. We're in between seasons, at the market. So it's like, it's kind of funny. So I got a lot of basil, and I made pesto for the topping of one of the soups, but, I got a lot of cauliflower. I say, okay, it's going to be a cauliflower soup. And so, it's a neat soul project that I started, that I can't tell you how much it gives me joy, because, I heard one recipient say, you mean the chefs from Insalatas are making the soup for us? And I go, that's everything to me, Steve. That's everything. It's like, yeah.
Well, that obviously creates a lot of excitement and enjoyment even before they partake in your product, because your food is so excellent.
Well, I make it like I would make it at the restaurant. Yeah. I don't cut corners. I really am. I want to make it as if I want to eat it, and I want them to enjoy it. Some of them say, you shouldn't put so much salt. I go, I'm gonna make it so it tastes good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you in our previous conversation, you mentioned to me that when you originally had the idea of Insalatas, you originally think of it strictly to be a takeout restaurant. And as it's turned out, Insalatas is probably one of the most successful restaurants, sit-down restaurants in all of Marin County. So tell us a little bit about how that original, thought of being just a takeout business turned into, this great, successful, full-service restaurant. And still, takeout is such a important part of your business, and maybe even discuss how COVID even, fueled your takeout business today. That'd be interesting if you could.
Yeah, it kind of went full circle. Yeah. Stevie, I think that what happened is that I was at Smith Ranch, enjoyed cooking for the residents, but then I kind of knew my time had come. I'd been there 8 years, and I was itching to open up my own place. And I had been out of the quote restaurant circle, because Smith Ranch was a private entity and was not open to the public. And I just thought, I don't know if it was my ego or or my fear. I just thought, what I'll do, replacement meals are a big deal. And so I thought, that's what we'll do. We'll really concentrate on takeout food. And we'll have a little bit of this 5,000 square feet will be the restaurant. And then most of it will be takeout. Because we had a coffee bar built in, and it was set up to be sort of like what do I want to say? Food fiesta, and we had this takeout, and then we had this coffee bar that did all this breakfast things. And then only the upper part of the mezzanine was going to be the restaurant. All the other tables were going to service takeout. Well, from day one, that restaurant was packed. And, people didn't know where to take their takeout food. And, it's like, okay, that's now a reservation. And so what happened was takeout kind of became the ugly stepchild because the restaurant got so busy.
Sure.
And then I'll never forget George Federici, who's just a brilliant.
Oh yeah, I know George. I
Yeah,
remember him from Simpsons. Yeah, he's a character.
He's a character. I used to call him Jorge, which really used to piss him off, but I just adore him. But we built this big coffee bar because we wanted to serve pastries in the morning and coffee and whatnot. And he goes, you're gonna pull that out in 6 months. I said, no, I'm not, Jorge. This is my vision. And blah, blah, blah. And 6 months we tore that out. He just kept going, hey, hi, you could have like 5 tables, 6 tables in here, and 2 turns times whatever your check average is. And I go, no, and it's gonna be great. And so we did. We had to, because the restaurant was so demanding. And so what happened was I didn't put the resources. I was afraid, to put tons more labor into keeping takeout big and booming. We just concentrated on the restaurant. And so takeout was great and it was wonderful. And we did catering out of takeout. But, fast forward, how many years was that? 2020, that was, 24 years, 24 years when the restaurant was shut down because of COVID. We were overwhelmed. We didn't know what to do. So we concentrated on takeout and we built it bigger. We did everything. We made cocktails and, we always had things like soup and sauces and things like that. But we doubled the production. We doubled it. And
That's
we just
great.
never ran out of food. And so really the cool thing is because that's the only place people could go eat. And then we remember, 3 months in, you could have 25% of your restaurant filled during COVID and you could be outside. And what did we do? We built a patio. And so, we were trying to be flexible. Did we have a vision? No. But the cool thing is we had takeout already in place.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people didn't. So they had to kind of scramble to get some sort of a takeout, program going.
Sure.
But we just made ours bigger. And so that was a blessing. That kept our doors open.
That's cool. So Heidi, what gives you the most satisfaction about operating Insalatas?
Well, I think just the combination of having this successful restaurant in a small town, where, I just adore the employees. There are employees there, Steve, that have worked there. There's 2 of them that have worked there pretty much since the day we opened the doors. And many of them have been there 20 plus years. And, the chef's been there, over 15 years. And it's just cool. I love the legs, the history with so many beautiful employees. I love, that's probably what brings me so much satisfaction is the combination of wonderful employees and wonderful guests.
Yes.
That you just get to see and love up and enjoy. And that's really been sort of my social life. And it's been my family's social life. I think that, now my son's working in it and I'm so proud of him working in the restaurant and running the restaurant and putting his stamp on it. So we've created a really beautiful space and a great satisfaction.
That's neat. Very neat. So yeah, you had mentioned your son who is actually now involved as the general manager, and then your husband, who's a former teacher, has been working with you in various capacities for many years. And I'm sort of curious how the dynamics work of having, direct family members involved in a business, because, I came from a family business and I know it either works great or it's terrible. There seems to be nothing in between. So just curious to see how this has worked out. Obviously, it's worked out well, but I'm curious to know how the whole family working together the chemistry and the dynamics that go in with, being family members and running a business. How does that all work out for you?
Well, Mark, we opened the restaurant when the kids were 3 and 5, and so Mark had already been teaching for over 20 years. And so what we decided is he was going to be the stay-at-home dad and really sort of help with the kids while I ran the restaurant, night and day. So that's how it started. But from the beginning, Mark did, 50% of the bookkeeping. He did, but he also, he's been the general contractor, the subcontractor. He's tutor. He tutors to this day. He tutors employees that that want to learn English so they
Wow.
can get ahead. So
Nice.
it was very fun. And he did baking for about 5, 7 years. And what he used to do, he used to get in early to the pastry department, pull the bread out, get it proofing, go do tutoring, before the employees started their prep shifts, and then come back to the bread. And, there's one of them that's just our star. He runs takeout, and he's really the most remarkable chef one of the most remarkable chefs that works at Insalatas. His English is perfection. And Mark started with him,
Oh, nice.
speaking to, yeah. And so that's very cool. So Mark really, has been the treasure of doing everything that nobody wants to do. And he does it with, I don't know, is love in his heart? Yes, there's love in his heart. Because a lot of them, spending 10, 12 hours in the refrigerator the day before Thanksgiving, making sure
Oh,
people get the right turkeys and making
wow.
sure they get their, we've gotta, it's all of that. As you know, the restaurant needs all of that, cleaning the gutters and patching and restriping the parking lot, it's
Wow.
just, it's,
He's a
there's
versatile guy.
yes. And
Really
then
nice.
he went to restaurant management school. And I think that he realized he had a feel for it, but I'm not sure, you know, he enjoys it. But it's very different, me coming from a food family and going to cooking school and having the cooking be my creative outlet. I think it's a very different front of the house. You have hospitality has to really be coursing through your veins,
Correct.
to be able to deal with the public and have hospitality and service be so important. But he enjoys it, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch, and then I'm also pulling my hair out, to watch the younger generation and how they view things and how they see things. It fascinates me, it really
Yes.
does, because just like we used to say with our parents, I'm never going to do it like my parents did it. Well, some of it they do and some of it they don't.
Sure.
So,
I get it.
he's finding his way. And I say he has the impossible task of filling my shoes,
Oh, yeah.
and he does it brilliantly. He does. He does it in his own brilliant way. So
That's that. You're
hats
very,
off to him.
very fortunate. Yeah, that sounds like it's a great team. Oh, you're very lucky. I know you mentioned hospitality, and it's obviously been a major part of your life. And how do you view hospitality exactly?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if this story will come off right, but think about when I came up in the restaurant world, it was all about food. For me, it was all about food. And I used to say early on, I said, I could have a trained monkey deliver my food as long as it was delicious. I didn't really care that the fork was like so and the coffee cup handle was at 4 o'clock. I mean, I knew it was important and I had people that did that, but I really cared about the food. And what I've realized over the years is that food is important, but what really matters is that people are seen and heard. They care about that. And they care that you remember them. And they care that you take notes that they didn't like that table the last time. And the next time that they come in, they want to have the table that they had requested, or any billion things that people care about when they walk into your restaurant. And that's, what's been fascinating to really realize about hospitality. And so it's so important to hire people that really care about people, that are passionate about pleasing people, that they bring their joy to work. I mean, it's so important that we hire correctly and as you know, it's hard in this business to hire, period. So to find people that are really service and hospitality driven, boy, when you find them, you keep them and love them up and get them to be a part of your family, because
Sure.
that's what I think. I really think hospitality. See, it's changed for me because I realize that, and I also think, Steve, this is kind of an interest. I think that, I think that it doesn't matter your socioeconomic background. I was raised with delicious food. A lot of people had moms and dad who didn't cook delicious food. And unfortunate, it didn't matter about their socioeconomic, but they were good cooks, let's just say. I think people understand good food, but I don't think everybody understands great food and the difference between good and great. Does that make sense? So I think that, listen, I'm always going to want to cook great food, but I also think what butts up with that and has to join in that marriage is, really good food and service, which is even more important than really good food. And I never would have said that even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That service is more important than really good food.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, if you go into a restaurant and you have just mediocre food but you have excellent service, you can rationalize, well, geez, it's been a great experience overall because the service was so great. So I'm certainly in sync with what you just pointed out
And
there.
it does make me crazy.
Yeah.
Because I really think I wish it was the other way around. And it's
Right.
not. So I understand it and I know the importance of it. So it's really about, training people to be, to be gracious and kind and welcoming. And I think Insalatas has always tried to do that, not only at the front door, but in our community with our service.
Sure.
So I think people do give us a little longer of a tether because we've been such an integral part of the community. At least I hope they do.
For sure. So playing off the hospitality definition again, and its importance in having a successful experience for a guest. If you were advising a younger person who was in the hospitality business and was thinking about making it a career, what advice would you give this person?
That's probably one of the hardest questions I've been asked, because I think that it's such a difficult profession, Steve. It's so difficult. And I think that to really excel and make a good, solid living requires a lot of talent and a lot of passion. And that's what I would say. If you're going to be, for example, in the back of the house, really find a mentor. So let's say you're saying that they're already in hospitality. Find a mentor within that business and have this hard conversations with them and ask for guidance. Because unless you've got 75, gosh, maybe it's even more, 6 figures to go to cooking school, I think that there are other avenues and ways to be in the kitchen. And it's really finding someone to take them under your wing. You know what I used to say? If you wanted to get into a kitchen, tell them you'd work a week or a month on your nickel and you could prove how good you are, and then they'll hire you. Well, it's like, you can't do that anymore. But, the point is that you want to find somebody who you feel dovetails with your passions and your sensibilities and the way you would want to be in a kitchen, that you like what they do. And, ask for guidance, ask for, mentorship, and again, you have in this business, if you're not 200% passionate about it, don't get in. It's too hard.
Yeah.
It's too hard.
For sure. No,
I think
that's a
the
great
front of the house is the same. It's too hard.
Yeah.
Having customers, that are just really demanding and want to be in your face at all times, you gotta love that.
Absolutely.
I really loved it.
Right. No,
So
I
it's
hear
really
you.
a passion question. Are you really passionate about it?
Yeah. No, that's great. Great response. So what event or events have been the most challenging in your career, and how have you dealt with these challenges?
Well, I think that COVID really threw me off my pins.
Yes.
It just did.
You and everyone else.
It really, and think about it, Steve, it was only 4 years ago.
Yeah.
4. It feels like 10 years ago. Because it was such an emotional, mental, just, hit on all your senses. And everybody was scared. Everybody was scared. And nobody knew what to do. And I have to say, I think it was at that point where I thought, I think I'm going to rethink this. And the really what came out of it was the super kitchen, that I wanted to do the super kitchen and making soup. I wanted to cook for those in our community that, were food insecure. And so that was the scariest of times and maybe the best and most pivotal of times for me because I knew that there was something else for me. I didn't have to, chase any more restaurants. I didn't have it. I didn't have it in me. And people say, "Oh, like, hey, how about if we open up?" I go, "Are you kidding? Are you kidding?"
Yeah.
I don't wish that on anybody. I think opening a restaurant right now is so difficult and so costly, and that I'm happy that we are in a place we are now, and we came out of COVID stronger. I think we came out of COVID stronger. And I have to say, Steve, we really got so much help from our government, with PPPs and all of the credits that we got. Thank God for that, because I don't think many of us would be here if we didn't have that kind of financial aid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So obviously you have a lot of expertise in many different areas and a lot of strengths. And how do you use this expertise and your strengths to overcome the challenges of the business, especially in California, as we've seen the landscape has changed dramatically with $20 minimum wage for fast food operations, with chains of I think 60 more units. However, that has sort of set the bar, so to speak, for the rest of the industry. So we've got that challenge. You got insurance costs going through the roof, all the high operating costs, food going up dramatically, 10% on this and 15% on it. It's just nuts. And how do you handle all this? Handling the operating expenses, and dealing with, trying to still maintain price value for the customer without, alienating your customer base, because obviously you can't pass all these increases on your menu prices dollar for dollar. And so obviously you got to be a lot more efficient to maintain margins. How are you accomplishing all this? You're obviously accomplishing it.
We are.
How are you doing it?
We are. I have to say, first and foremost, I'm a good number cruncher. If I'm going to pat myself on the back, I'm a good number cruncher. And I chase numbers. I just chase them. If something goes up, I got to figure out where we're going to save on something else. I'm the gal who hides steam towels in the kitchen because the more you put out, the more they use. So I hide them. And then if someone sees where I hid them, I go, now I'm going to have to kill you. And I just, it's like, okay, now you know the secret spot. Now I got to kill you. And so, I just would look at P&Ls and I would eat them up and I would say, okay, and I know how to react. And I try not to be reactive, but more proactive. And so, I think that's kind of old school in a way. Don't you think, Steve? Us, just like your family. I mean, we paid attention. And we paid attention to costs. And though, as they run away as they are, it becomes a trickier dance, no doubt. And what we are always up against is, there's this level of pricing at the restaurant that I'm very, very sensitive to. And I don't want to be pricing our restaurant where we are a special occasion restaurant because we're too expensive. Mm-hmm. And so I always kind of talk to the managers and the chef, do not charge X because you can get it. Charge it because that's the right price to charge. In other words, oh, we can get 18 for that. Don't, you don't need that. You don't need to have, a 20% food cost on that. You just don't. So price it fairly and you want people to come back. And I made that mistake. I don't know what it was. I want to say early 2000s. And we had to up our prices, whatever the financial crisis was at that point, we just thought, wow, we are not making the money we should be making. And we raised our prices and people noticed and our numbers went down. our cover counts went down. And so I learned that lesson early on. You price it fair and give them value and give them big portions and they will come. And so I think what's really certainly happened, and it happens in takeout all the time, we have survived because our cover counts are really good. So we have a lot of people coming through the door.
Sure.
So, which certainly is, revenues make everything rosy, as you know.
Right.
And so, all I can say is that I really pay attention to the numbers. I do. We negotiate everything and, insurance and everything we can just so that we can stay afloat. And again, I don't know, what's the industry average bottom line? What is it generally? Is it 5%, 10%?
Well, I mean, it depends on the, volume. And because obviously, once you hit a break even point, you have a certain flow through to the bottom line. So if you're doing a large volume and you watch your costs accordingly, you'll have a bigger flow through. So it's hard to, answer that question specifically. Again, it depends upon, levels of volume. But I mean, if let's say in, a high volume restaurant in the good old days, was making 15 to 20% in the good old days, that's probably more like, halved, today,
Sure,
unfortunately,
sure,
because of in order to maintain price value and keep your customer base, you have to eat it on the margin. And that's just a reality. And that's one of the reasons that's discouraging so many people from carrying on in this business, especially, the, older folks that, are considering retiring. It's accelerating their motivation to retire and get out and get something for their business versus having to deal with, all the challenges they've had between the Great Recession and the dot-com boom and COVID and, potential of, who knows if, the vulnerability of another recession happening, once the next year the presidential election is done. There are too many unknowns out there and
sure.
uncertainties.
Yeah,
So it's yeah, very dicey out there right now, to say the least. And especially California to begin with is, such a challenging place to do business in. But nonetheless, professionals like you can still, succeed and prevail because you put out consistently, good product, good service, in a very nice decor, and you're consistent. And that's really important, consistency. And you have that very devoted customer base that, quite frankly, loves you.
they
So,
do. They do. And I'm so blessed. I never take that for
well,
granted.
you've earned everything that you've reaped for sure. I mean,
Oh, well,
that hasn't happened, but just by accident. But I know you mentioned to me, at the start of this that you have to, go to one of your nonprofits and make food, and so I'm cognizant of that. So consequently, I'm very conscious about the time. So I want to acknowledge you, Heidi, for your leadership contributions that you've made to the hospitality industry and to all the nonprofit organizations that you've been involved with throughout your life. For over 4 decades, you spent your time, energy, and passion with your staff, your family, and community. Your life serves as a role model as a devoted mother, wife, and successful business person, and a committed human being to improving the world with your service to many nonprofit boards you have diligently served on. So very appreciative of you and your commitments to the world. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Oh, well, first of all, Steve, thank you so much. You're gonna get,
Well,
I'm making me a little teary again. My God, it
well,
was
it's
very,
true.
very kind, very kind
It's
of you.
very sincere.
I could feel that. I so appreciate it. And yeah, if somebody they could just email the restaurant. That's probably the best. If they
And
email go to the website, you can email the
let's
restaurant.
give them that website address then, if you
Oh,
would.
you'd think I'd know that. I think it's Insalatas restaurant, uh, Insalatas restaurant at Comcast.net.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And I'd like to just mention briefly some of our upcoming Dealmaker shows. Next month we have Donna Seymour,
Oh, that's awesome.
one of your neighbors. I actually sold Donna
Yes.
that restaurant 20 years ago. Actually, she was originally in the San Anselmo Inn. That's where Glenn was, of Comforts originally. That was one of my
Oh,
earlier.
I know.
Glenn
I was
was
gonna
really
buy
devoted.
that.
Yeah, and so I did the deal with I think it was Trey Fratelli originally.
Mhm.
Remember
Oh my
Trey
gosh, remember?
Fratelli? And
Yep.
then I sold it to Donna and her former husband, And then their attorney was charged with exercise, letting them know when the option was coming due, to exercise the option. He forgot to let them know, and the landlord wanted the space back. And so they
Oh my
I ended
God,
up
I've never heard that
I ended up
story.
moving. Yeah, I ended up moving them to well, it used to be Rossetti's. Remember
Right,
Rossetti's? Yeah,
right.
and then
That's a great spot she's
oh
in.
yeah,
A
and
great
so a
spot.
lot of history there. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off the track there, but I couldn't
No, I think it's
couldn't
terrific.
couldn't avoid that. So then we have in July we have Ike Shahada, a very interesting guy. He's the founder of Ike's Sandwiches
Oh, sure.
with over 100 locations in California, and then he's got locations in Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, Texas, and Utah. And then August 22nd, a very interesting lady who her name is Vivian Borges. She's the former managing partner of Paris Bakery in Monterey and their wholesale operation in Seaside. And we recently sold that restaurant. And then additionally, we have Joey Altman. I guess you know Joey,
Oh, of
right? Yeah.
course. He's a
Joey's a
terrific
chef,
individual. Yeah.
restaurateur, teacher, television host of Appetite for Adventure. And Joey is currently the culinary director and executive chef of Hazy's and Brixton in San Francisco. And then we have Brandon Robinson, who's a very interesting fellow. He actually came from the high tech world, but now he's the CEO of Tipsy Putt. They've got about half a dozen locations. They're mini golf courses with pubs, and it's an interesting concept. You go and play miniature golf, and then you have a meal. You can have a pub meal. And he's got about half a dozen of those locations. And then Scott Greenberg is going to be another one of our guest hosts. He's a former multi-unit franchisee of Edible Arrangements and keynote speaker and the author of a couple books, The Shift Show. Talks about how to motivate shift employees to basically be successful and from the employer's point of view and the employee's point of view and the wealthy franchisee. So that's some of our upcoming.
Fantastic.
And again, I want to thank Heidi very much for your sincerity and
Thank
your
you, Steve.
passion and your commitment to the community. Um, and if anyone wants to get in touch with me, I can be reached at steve@restaurantrealty.com. So most importantly, everyone, take care of yourself, take care of others, and stay well. And again, thank you, Heidi.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.